Okay, I think we are rolling here. Hey, how's it going? Lenny B with you, and this is kind of my first jump into YouTube Live, and I want to do more of these things, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about what is going to happen in this video today. I'm going to introduce you to Theo Polo. He is a client and kind of become a friend, but I want to talk to him with you. I want to share our conversation today on YouTube, really about his career, how he's gone from just the thought of voiceover and then now working in voiceover and continuing to grow. So I think that's really valuable. I want to share that with you because I know there's a lot of people that follow my channel and they're looking to improve their audio, but also, they're interested in, hey, how do I get from just starting or making this a hobby, and how do I go from starting to make some money and creating a business and going from side hustle to maybe full time. I know there's a lot of people that want to do that, and I love sharing the stories, especially for my clients, because everybody's at a different level. So we're going to talk to Theo about that, and then also he is a client of mine, and I've created a custom processing preset for him. And he also has a ton of audio questions. And I thought, we were talking together, I'm like, hey, Theo, we should just share this conversation because I think I'm teaching you, and then our conversation could teach other people. So those are the things we're going to talk about today. And so let's bring him on now. Theo, let's see, make sure you can hear okay. There you are. How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
It's going great, loud and clear. Thanks, Lenny.
Awesome. I may be doing some adjustments and things while we're having the conversation. So first of all, why don't you tell me a little bit about you and where you are? Let's start there. Where you are physically on the globe, but then also tell me, what you're doing with your voiceover from day to day these days.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot again for having me on. This is a great opportunity for us to chat, and hopefully it helps some people out also. So I am in Finland. I'm currently living with my family in Finland, and I'm kind of splitting my time a little bit between here and the West Coast, but primarily here. And with voiceover, I started just under a year ago, when I recorded actually my my first book, which I wrote myself. Wanted the audiobook to be part of the offering. So I just happened to have a Blue Yeti microphone rattling around in my storage boxes and fished that out, set up a very makeshift studio in retrospect, and just started doing it. And
So wait, Theo, hang on a second. This is great.
yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
of course.
First of all, I want to invite people to say hi. You can comment, and I will do my best to bring people in the conversation. They may have other questions because I want you to ask us questions. I want everybody who's watching this to be in. Obviously, if you're watching this live right now, I want to invite you to make a comment. And we're starting to get some people to come in here, which is really cool. You started just a year ago, and it was your own book, which I think a lot of people are kind of entrepreneurs. They've got some type of content. So you started there. And then continue the Blue Yeti, which a lot of people have, like maybe I like to call them a down and dirty, quick little USB mic to get started. So continue, please.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, so I started recording the audiobook and went through a very painful learning curve with that. But nevertheless, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the process. And in the process of doing takes and retakes and edits and re-edits and learning a whole bunch of very painful lessons, I realized that, hey, this is actually something that I can see myself doing so much more. And I decided to just pursue that path and look for other audiobooks I could record after mine was completed. And lo and behold, after about a month and change of auditions on ACX, I got my first gig in February, and that's when it really started picking up because yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So your first paid gig was February of this year, and you only started on ACX. That was the first thing you did. Is that correct?
Yes, because that was the platform I was familiar with. So having recorded the book for Audible, I put it on there and I used their platform. So I was already familiar with all of their presets and requirements that they wanted. And for me, that was kind of a natural starting point because I thought, hey, there's other people obviously wanting to get their books
Sure. Just
narrated, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them.
yeah.
So
Let me
I
ask.
just
This is so valuable. And this seriously, this is the reason why I want to have you on here. I think for people to hear this. So, yeah, that's so cool that you did that and you jumped in. So let me ask you this: you were still using the Blue Yeti mic.
yes,
You still had a starter studio, probably not the sound treatment and the things that you had. A lot of
right.
people are like, I got to do all these things before I put myself on ACX or before I try out. So this is the valuable thing. What in your brain, Theo, did you do to push yourself to jump? Because that's where people pause. That's where people stop. They know my audio. Here's what happens. Because I'm like you, where I think we're all very much the same. Uh, what it's in your head, right? Oh, it's not good enough, or is my voice really? Is somebody really going to like me? Is my quality good? I mean, it goes on and on and on. What kicked you in the behind to start doing that? What was the impetus? What pushed you?
It's a great question. I think that in the beginning, I just really didn't think about it all that much, which is, I suppose, a double-edged sword, right? Because the things you don't consider, they can kind of help you if they're not keeping you from starting, but they can hurt you if you don't think about them for too long. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was kind of a balance of the two. I really just thought it was good enough at the level that I was working at, and I figured I should get some practice before I invested further to
Okay,
see whether or not I was going to get any feedback.
that's so great. What would you tell somebody that is just on the on the cliff? They're not jumping yet. So now that because this is to me, I really feel this is valuable. What would you tell somebody now that you've done it and you put yourself out there and you started, even if it was naive, as you say, I just didn't really care much about it or worry too much about it. That's a good. But what would you tell somebody that's like, I gotta wait, I'm not ready to jump and kind of do it yet? Would you tell them to prepare better? Would you tell them to just try it and see? Like, if somebody is hesitant, how would you suggest? What would you suggest they do so they can get over this? What I call them, they're like little speed bumps in your career, like they're little challenges, and you kind of got to go through these chapters, right, as you grow. What would you tell them?
I would say seek informed advice to a point. Get some tips. But beyond that, there's kind of I worked at a startup for several years, and one of the mantras in startups is go early and go ugly. Just get started doing something,
Right.
because you will learn
Learn.
more
Right. You learn.
working
That's where
on
you learn.
something. That's right. You'll learn more working on something in real life than you will from preparing to do real life, if that makes sense.
Listen,
So
I think we're doing that right now in
that's
real
exactly
time.
right.
I want to say hi to George Pinto. He just joined us. He's a client of mine. We've got a bunch of people joining. It's exactly because just like this is the first YouTube live that I'm doing for the channel, and I want to do more of this stuff, but I know there's going to be problems. And here's what kind of helps a little bit. I mean, I'll be completely transparent. If the sound is distorted, please tell me. If the audio engineer isn't getting the sound right on his YouTube live right now, there's a lot of buttons and knobs and controls and things even to just make this happen with our interview right here. But
Sure.
and I hesitated for quite a long time to do this, but my next YouTube Live is going to be better. I'm going to learn how to use this program more. But it's exactly right. I feel like we're all doing this and I'm continually doing it. But that is a beautiful sentiment. And I think it's, go early and go ugly. Is that what you said?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm going to remember that. That's great. Okay, please continue. So then what happens after, you do this first audiobook, continue the story. So starting in February, then what did you do?
Sure. So that's where I think the first evolutionary turn takes place, because it was actually in January that I was doing all the auditions. I wasn't getting any responses. And so I started to investigate. I started to go look at other narrators on ACX, kind of
Right.
explore other people's samples.
Start
When I
comparing
heard
yourself. Start comparing yourself to other people.
That's right. Comparing, but constructively so. Thinking about what I might be missing, what else can I do to get better.
Right.
Learning, really just education of what do professional narrators sound like.
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed immediately was that obviously the difference in sound was rather stark. My recording had that boxy, that classic amateur studio, untreated space, boxy sound to it, very hollow, very resonant. Probably the gain staging wasn't done right. In fact, let's be honest, it just wasn't done right. Like a lot of other things.
So, and by the way, we are going to, here, let me see if I can push the right button here. And a little late, oh, I pushed the wrong button. Stand by, look at here. This is me learning right now. We are going to be looking, this is do you realize you and I went through 10 different iterations of your room before we finally, I have version 10, something that we did. I mean, this is version 9 right now.
I wish we wouldn't tell people that.
Well, no. So what I mean by that is that you and I, we worked, oh boy, I'm learning. You and I worked on different iterations of your room and mic position and the processing until we got to something, and we kept learning, and eventually we got a sound. Anyway, we worked together, so I just want to say that, hey, Terry just came in. How's it going? We're going to examine kind of your process with the audio and stuff. We're going to get to that because you and I started working together. Just this last iteration was less than a month ago, but okay, I want you to keep going. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just want to say that we're going to look at your audio. Keep going.
Yeah, so right around January, I was not getting responses, so I started to investigate, and that's when I found out that the sound was just not competitive. I had to do something. I had to do a little bit of research. I had gone early. It was indeed ugly, and now it was time to learn and adjust. So obviously the first thing that I learned was that audio interfaces were a must for voiceover recording. You have to work very hard to get quality sound without it. And they're so inexpensive these days that it's really the best way to get started, get access to really good sound, much better than you can with any USB microphone, unless, you're going very high dollar USB microphone.
Theo, I jumped just a bit. I have yet to hear a USB mic as good as a separate audio interface and an XLR mic. I'm not saying that there's one out today that I just don't know about and I'm not aware of, but because they have to combine the technology of the interface and the mic into this one unit, and it's usually less expensive, and the parts and the audio analog to digital to analog conversion is usually it's not as good. It's the converters and the preamp. But go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and well, then that was just it. It was actually a friend of mine who had suggested also, hey, you might look into audio interfaces, and so I did. I started searching around. I found the Focusrite ecosystem. It seemed very accessible, had great reviews, sold a bundle, which was really nice and easy, a very inexpensive bundle. So I went ahead and got that, and that's when I started down that road. And I think that at the same time, I also began treating the space a little bit more.
Which Focusrite are you? And you're still using that now. Which Focusrite did you get?
I am. I got the fourth generation 2i2.
Cool. Yep, that's a very popular and a fantastic choice. I love Focusrite. Keep going.
Yeah. So it's been great. I did some auditions with that almost immediately, I think.
Okay.
It was confirmed that the sound was the issue that was holding me back, because within a couple of weeks I had my first gig in February. I recorded that book on the Focusrite as is, just on the studio.
Which mic were you using at that point?
It was the Scarlett that came with the bundle.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's
I see.
called the MKH3 or something like that.
Yep.
Very basic, small diaphragm condenser, but so much better than with that XLR connection than the Yeti was by itself.
And I'll tell you what that is. When you say so much better, sometimes a lot of times people don't know what the details like. I don't know why it sounds better, but I mean, just from an audio engineer standpoint, I'll tell you what I think the difference is between an XLR mic, making that jump from a USB mic. A lot of times what happens, the microphones, the resolution of the diaphragm and the electronics, it's picking up frequencies more evenly. it takes a lot of tuning and a lot of manpower and a lot of technology to make a microphone pick up a flatter response, because what happens is it picks up higher frequencies a little bit louder than it picks up lower frequencies, and it's kind of if you were to plot it out, the frequencies, it's kind of a squiggly line. So a really expensive microphones will have a boost in certain places, but it's on purpose. Like they'll say, oh, we want to put a little boost, and that's what gives a microphone a character and something like that.
Right.
Usually that translates into, in better components, translates into more resolution. So it's like going from a regular definition TV to 4K, but for audio. So I think that's really what you're hearing. And then the same thing happens with the preamps. Usually a preamp is in your focus, right? The preamp actually is quieter, and it also replicates those frequencies from the microphone more evenly and gives you a nice, clearer picture of your audio. So I think that's what it is. And then as you go, an inexpensive setup, preamp, microphone, the mid-priced, and the higher you go towards more boutique microphones, I think that resolution, the resolution improves, but not as much. So just in general, I found $100 microphone is a big jump to a $500-$600 microphone. But then as you go up from there are incremental changes, and it's little nuances and stuff. Sorry,
No, that's great to know, and that actually explains a lot of why I heard such a big difference with it, and apparently my first client did as well.
Do you feel like, Theo, and by the way, maybe if you're just joining us, we're talking to a real-life voiceover artist that has gone from, maybe I should try this voiceover thing and make money at it, to now working as a voiceover artist, and we're learning about him. He's also one of my clients. I've helped him improve his audio, and we're just talking about really the challenges that he had and the questions. I know we're going to get into some of the computer stuff challenges that we've been talking about recently, improving his audio to help him give him more confidence. That's kind of what we're doing today on this YouTube Live. My name is Lenny B, by the way, and I'm an audio engineer. And you say Finland, right? What brought you there to Finland, by the way?
Oh, it's a story onto itself. But long story short is my wife is actually from here. Her roots are here. She's visited here all throughout her childhood. And when we had kids, we decided we wanted to raise our kids in a place that, has really good social support systems, safe, quiet, very, very peaceful place, beautiful nature. So we decided to take the leap and move from the West Coast. We spend the majority of our time here. So,
Theo, I say this constantly because I can't believe it. I mean, just putting content online and posting and YouTube and Instagram, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, to be able to work with you, and you're on the other side of the globe right now, is just nuts to me. That freaks me out all the time. It's just
it's
so
pretty
impressive.
fascinating.
Fascinating. It really is. What a great time to be doing media and this kind of stuff. So you are upgrading your microphone. This is what I wanted to ask you. How much of your improvement in audio quality, like you got the USB mic, you hear what it sounded like, you were trying and not as successful as you want it to be, then you upgraded your stuff and the sound was better. Give me a percentage. How much was it now you feel confident? It's like, oh, I like the way this sounds. Let me give this another shot. How much of it was confidence versus how much of it was what you think was literally a better audio quality? And that's just that jump to the new microphone and Focusrite interface.
Lenny, it's a difficult question to answer, actually, because there were a few things that happened simultaneously. So right around that same time is when I started paying attention to YouTube videos and advice. I was kind of researching, getting an education, arguably maybe things I should have done before I started auditioning for things, but that's part of the go ugly part.
Right.
And right. So I was, and I think right around there is when I came across some of your videos, started learning about acoustic treatment, started learning about how valuable the integrity of the recording space is. And so there was kind of a moment where I did several things simultaneously. I got the interface set up. I got some basic foam lined treatment for the space that I was in. That was kind of my first step towards that. And I was simultaneously learning about presets, about gain staging. So there were a few things that happened all at once. But if I had to give just the mic a grade, I would say, it was probably a solid 33 to 50% improvement to the sound alone. I think some of that had to do with me figuring out the gain, which was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like the first big step, and then after that there were still additional big steps that followed, largely as a result of paying attention to the other critical factors.
Theo, and again, I think this is so really great and so important to share this great information. So, I mean, one of the things I would say to anybody listening that is earlier in their path, their career, and I'm talking about you could be doing voiceover, you could be working using ACX and you want to do audiobooks, or if you're going to do gaming, if you're just streaming your gaming, that's a huge popular thing. And want to get a better sound with your microphone and your content. If you're doing Instagram, if you're podcasting, if you're doing a podcast or a vlog on YouTube, there's so many different, content creation is just huge right now. And if you're looking to improve, I guess what I want to say is, as long as you learn something and your next video sounds, looks, is better than your last video or whatever you're doing, you are moving in the right direction and you are getting better and you are getting closer to your goal. So, keep learning. And also it's like, it's all out there. I think the information, and you learn, you ask, you talk to other people, you get involved in a community, you watch videos on YouTube. And I'm so grateful that you found me and that we've been able to work together. Just keep that climb, and everybody, you can do it. It may be slow and it may be, discouraging at times. And money may be a big part of like, hey, I got to save up before I do this. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my courses just a little bit here, because you mentioned recording level, you mentioned room treatment. I have courses on both of those things. And I want to say the reason why I created those courses is because working with people just like you and the questions that I get asked constantly, and I go, everybody's having the same recording level issue. It's unclear. I'm seeing it as an audio engineer as easy, but maybe I need to break this down for people, explain what the good recording level for a voiceover is, what the right one is, and why. It's like, do it this way, because down the path, when you master at the end of your production process, if you don't do the recording level right, the mastering isn't going to sound good. So I just want to throw that out there and look at, and I'm learning here, YouTube Live as we go. Look at, I made this slide. Boom. I'm laughing at myself here. So number one,
Great.
I think this is a good first course. You're seeing the courses on the screen right now. Is that true?
Yes.
Number one is the recording levels course. Number 1 and 2, and I suggest in those orders, acoustic treatment is like a great second step. And you can get all the information about my training courses online. LennyB.com is my website, by the way. I feel like part of that climb and improving yourself, I create these courses based on the stuff that I've been asking. It's like, as soon as I learn this, wow, I raised my game this much, and my audio now sounds this better. So this much better, and that has happened to you. You did your own research and you figured it out yourself, but you felt that as well. Is that true? Once you learn these particular things, you raised your game.
Yeah, figured it out would be being overly generous. I would say I moved in the right direction, but I do want to say, to make a comment about that as well, which is just such a perfect way to put it, because when you're starting out, there's so much to learn, and there are so many sources of information and so much conflicting information that it can just be chaos in the brain, right? You start reading one thing and then another, and before you know it, you're 2 hours down some rabbit hole on resonant frequencies, and it's just, all of it is overwhelming because you don't have the foundation yet to really understand it, much less make use of it. Forget about that.
Right.
So I think what you said is really, really critical. It's just remember that each day moving in the right direction is more important than accomplishing these big goals that you might have started out with. Because, as an example, I started in January and I said, oh, I'm going to do, uh, you know, I'm going to get my first job before I get to 50 auditions.
Okay.
Why did I pick 50 auditions? I don't know. It was an arbitrary number that came out of cyberspace. Maybe
Right.
I read about somebody getting their first job before 50 auditions. Maybe I just imagined that's what being successful meant. I don't know.
Doesn't matter. It
But
doesn't matter. But I'm glad you made some type of goal to move towards. It doesn't matter really the number, but that's great that you did that.
yeah, I did make the number, but I made the number a goal, but I didn't make the goal, if that makes sense. But that was fine, because what I realized somewhere around the 30 mark of fiddling with all this stuff, I suddenly had this moment where I was like, it doesn't really matter if I get it by 50 or not, because look at how much better everything is now
Yes.
than it was 30 auditions ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that was more worth it to me than actually hitting the goal, which did eventually happen around the 65 mark. Not that it matters, like you said, the number is just a number, but ultimately it was the making progress, moving, advancing the goalpost forward that was really important.
I think also that, when we do those type of things, it pushes us to move and take risks. And like you said, I think I'm going to change the title of this video to Go Soon and Go Ugly. That may be perfect, but I love that.
Go early and go ugly.
Is that what I
Yes,
said? Go soon, go early.
But please bear in mind that that's probably stolen from someone. That is not an original from me. I don't want to claim any copyright over that.
Gotcha. I'll make sure I'll put that in the small print that it wasn't. It's borrowed from somebody. I feel like when you do set those goals, you end up making some sort of progress, and once you get like you said, once you get to that you've done 35 or whatever, and you look back and go, wow, look how much progress I've made. That realizing the progress and feeling like, wow, I mean, if I listen to this is great. Go back and listen to your very first recording, and then you listen to and you can see how much progress you've made, how much advancement, how much better you probably sound, and more confident you sound. That prevents being discouraged. And I'm going to tell you, I say this all the time too. You and I are very similar. I would say that most of the people, I've got Ray just joined from Munich. We've got Chris from Rhode Island. There's a ton of people that are going to be watching this eventually on YouTube as it lives on my channel. We are creatives. We are people that are putting ourselves out there, and we're putting ourselves out there to be criticized. I mean, it just happens, and it's a fear when we want to perform. It's like being on stage. It's like a band. It's like an actor. It's a creative person. It's like this could be a painter. It could be a sculptor. When you put your heart into some type of creative project and then you push it out into the center of the room for people to see, they may feel a certain way, they may like it, they may hate it, or whatever, but that's scary, it's frightening. But I feel like what you just said, and I think all of us are creatives, we all feel that way. Maybe you don't realize it yet, but that's really kind of what we're doing when we record something and then send out a demo or send an audition. We're like, oh my God, I hope they like it, because you want to move forward and you want to, expand your career. But I think what you've said was seeing the climb, seeing the progress. Boy, does that give you inspiration and help you from getting down or sometimes being uninspired. I feel that way a lot of times. I'm like, I don't know. Am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Or am I really good enough to reach my goal? I mean, that comes in our heads all the time. That's natural. It's human nature, but especially for creative types. So I love that you pushed yourself, you saw that climb, you saw that advancement. Even if it was just your sound quality, it was proof that you're learning and getting better. That pushes people. It's imperative that we all do that. Push ourselves and take risks and go early and go ugly. I love it.
That's right. I think that that might be a Basecamp. That might be attributable to Basecamp.
The software?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
I think it might be.
Oh, I like it.
I'm recalling now that I thought about it a little. I'm recalling seeing it in at least a blog post about them, if not from them. So don't quote me on it, but
No worries, no worries.
that
So
might be them.
so you made advancements. You didn't reach your 50 goal. It took about 35 or whatever. So continue. Then how did you go from, so yeah, tell me about your first client and then the move to where you are now.
Yeah. So the first client was right around mid-February. It was a parenting book that showed up out of nowhere, and I remembered this is actually a might be a useful tip for somebody out there who's auditioning for stuff and trying to differentiate themselves somehow.
Please,
I
Theo,
remember,
this is why you're here. This is great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a title about parenting. It was called Girl Dad, navigating fatherhood with daughters. And when I auditioned for it, it was a right, it was a perfect title to audition for right at that moment because I had a 1-year-old girl myself, and I was very much facing the girl dad phenomenon. So
Yes.
the path forward, and so I just wrote a real simple personal line in my query along with my audition, and I just said, "Hey, thanks for listening to this. Just want to let you know, as a brand new girl dad myself, this text resonates with me, and I think that'll come through in my performance." And that's it.
Oh my
And
God, that
it
is
was
so.
enough to get the gig because they wrote me back. They said, "Great, that's exactly what we want." And, will you do it for this? And it was my first job. So of course I said yes. And from there, I just was hard at work on, trying not to screw it up.
Theo, that is so beautiful. And I'll tell you why. Because that, at the core, is what I talk about in my marketing, my training course for marketing. It's what I do, and I think it is what separates. It's great that happened, but I think it's you can continue to use that. So what you did was, if I've got a book that I'm writing about, being a girl dad, this obviously was somebody who was in that situation. I want an audio person to be the voice, the face of my book and my creative that I've been pouring my heart out so I could support my family. It's
That's
my
right.
creative thing. I want to get the right person to voice this that has a sound that I like, but also knows where I'm coming from in his heart. Like, you're going through the same stuff as a girl dad. You're having the same thoughts. I feel like that person heard that in your voice. Yes, you're brilliant for putting it in your, your notes or whatever that you did. But I think if you planted the seed in your communication with the person and then they listened, you are coming from a different location than a voiceover person who wasn't a girl dad. And I'll give you, let me throw this at you. I'll give you another way to look at it. I believe you read that topic, those subjects, with different heart, better, much better than someone who was acting or faking it. It wasn't a real deal. And
That's
excuse me,
right.
I feel like if we follow that recipe, you can't stop being successful. So let me throw. I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit too.
Oh yeah.
That's something you were going through. It's something that was real life. But then think about some of the other things that you are passionate about, that you speak well about in your life. The things that you love, the things that you spend time on, the things that you're well versed on. For me, it's audio. I mean, I could talk about compression. I'm looking at my equipment right now. I could talk about equipment and preamps and EQ and compression and parametric EQ and saturation. I love that stuff. I love it. All my friends here in San Diego, they love when I come to their band gig because they're like, "Lenny, just put your hands on our mixer just to make us sound good, just for a second." And I love it. And or if my wife and I are at a street fair and there's a band playing and there's EQ, my wife's like, "Just let it go, just let it go." I say, "I can't. There's feedback. There's something is wrong." She's like, "Look, I just want to go pick up our organic lettuce and we're gonna go home." I go, I sweetheart, I can't. I go over there and I fix their sound. It's my passion. But
I
what I
would
want to
expect
share with
nothing less.
You're right. It's just what I'm into. But my point is, every artist has something that they're equally as passionate about. What else in your life? And I'm not asking you the question right now. I'm just sharing this concept and idea. Man, this really propelled me forward to create a YouTube channel that now allows me to do this full time. What passions in your life do you have that you will speak on better than someone who doesn't have those passions? For instance, I have Todd. Todd Stark is a client of mine, and he is all about whiskey. He likes high-end whiskeys. He's into tastings, and he knows all the chemistry and about fermenting and the whole bit. I don't know anything about that world, and he's really into acoustic guitars and wood and tone and things. I thought it was a wonderful example, and I said, man, if you focus or at least do demos talking about those subjects. If I've got a guitar that I'm trying to sell and I have marketing material, you're the guy, because you're going to talk about that better than anything else. It's the same illustration. It's a concept. And I think that's most of the reason why they thought, oh my God, you're perfect for this. I mean, it just makes so much sense to have somebody in your situation. I'm just going to throw this out there. I feel a little bit bad that I'm interrupting you constantly, but I want to share these messages and this information because I think it's so valuable to help all the people watching. So please, thank you for allowing me to tell that story, but continue. So I think that is so valuable and cool. Smart.
It's all part of that conversation. And you were the first person, I think I intuited this, just to put it another way, what you're saying now, as to borrow your own words. You were the first person who really articulated this well for me, which is the point of a great voiceover is to make an emotional connection with the listener. And so this speaks to that as well, because the emotional connection you have to the copy or to the subject matter or to the characters in the work or whatever else, whatever is in the material, is going to be the emotional connection that is conveyed to the listener. Now, that might not match what the author had in mind, and that's okay, because there's different types of emotional connections that can come from the same material, and they might hear one or the other and have a preference. But the important thing is that it's authentic to you, because if it's authentic to you, it'll land or it won't, but at least you won't have to fake it. You won't have to play at it. It'll be real.
And think about the other side of that too. Like the Girl Dad book, somebody, the author liked you because I think mostly it was coming from your heart. You were speaking from a real life experience, sincerity, organic, you can call it whatever you want. But now think about the receiver or the person listening to the audiobook. They're going to go, oh my God, this book was great. It really helped me. They're going to tell their friends about it who are in the other situation if it comes up. If they really like it, if they've made an emotional connection, it makes the book successful. So look what's happened. My marketing course, by the way, is called Modern Synergy Marketing. Look what's happened. You have connected with this person who needed someone to speak on their content. And it was about Girl Dads. You had that same passion. The person found you who's speaking on it in a way that no one else, well, other people can, but someone who wasn't in that situation couldn't speak on that part, right? So you've helped them realize their dream of putting this book out and making it a reality. And they've helped you by giving you the opportunity to make money doing what you love to do and speaking. It's a synergy. And when you find people like that, I would go as far as saying you and I connecting, we're synergy. You're helping me share my expertise and passion, and I'm helping you sound better. You and I have a synergy from a business aspect. So, but that only happens when you share your passion, you share your sincere gifts, and you share your skills, authentic skill and passion about something, and teach somebody and bring what you have as a valuable. We're all students really, but what you do, you're really good at certain things. And so when you bring that to the table and you make a connection with the right people and you market to those people, synergy and magic happens. And that's how businesses grow. I think that's where it all stems from.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the word authentic too, because I think it was Gary Vee. He was a big marketing genius who said authenticity trumps likability.
Agreed.
And I totally believe in that. That's been a lesson that stuck with me, because Well, just look at your videos. Like, how many videos are there about EQing and compression on the internet?
Mm.
Myriad, right? But I was drawn to your videos because I can tell that you have an authentic passion and interest in the subject, and you're not putting it on. You are exploring and learning and growing and taking people along for that experience with you, which has been a great ride for me because I didn't know anything about sound production when I started, but I learned so much just by pursuing that parallel interest with you. So I think authenticity is something that's very underrated. And I would tell
Yeah.
people too, please audition for things that you feel authentically interested in. Your chances go off the charts as
Yes.
opposed to, something that doesn't jive at all.
If you take that to the extreme, it's like you're not, if you're a male voiceover artist, you're not going to try out for someone who's looking for a female voice, unless you're doing some
Right.
kind of character acting and you could pull that off, whatever. Yeah, that's the extreme. Like, go work within your wheelhouse, but I say, work your strengths. If you, and this goes so deep. If you, and one of the in my marketing course, I have one of my clients just loves a particular type of animation, Japanese animation, and I don't know anything about that world, and she's really into it. And there was a specific type. She's like, I love this. I know all about it. I'm like, well, that's what you should audition for. That's your thing, Go that
Absolutely.
way, go in that direction. If that's your dream or whatever, you're so passionate about, all the details about it. If I'm looking for someone to do that, you're the one, because all of so you have to market that and share that and tell people that, hey, this is what I do. And I try to do that in my videos as well. If I say, I help people make a better connection, or let's make your voice sound better. So it's branding yourself, but you can do that as a voiceover artist, to share what
Yes.
your passions. Yeah, you're right. I think that's huge. And being authentic, I often say that when I do finally connect with somebody, like when we connected and you reached out to me and you were interested in getting a custom setting from me, you really knew me. Our first business meeting was on YouTube, and I wasn't there. I was actually, I
That's right.
prepared all this stuff. It's the truth, and everybody can make a YouTube video. You can make an Instagram channel. Everybody's got a broadcast channel. What story are you telling to market yourself? That's just one aspect of business, but I'm also very interested in that too. But I think you have learned and realized, that, and I think that has contributed partially, maybe more than we realize, to your success.
I think you're absolutely right, because what happened next was that was the affirmation that going with the authentic voice, going with what feels natural and real, was the thing that led to the breakthrough, because it was within 2 weeks of that job that I think I had my next 3 projects. And then, of course, I was booked to the gills, and then I was struggling to make it work. So,
From
that's
time for a
exactly right.
time from a time component, you mean, like when you say struggling to get it all done because you had so many things coming in?
Yeah. Yeah. I had 3
Mm.
projects I was working on concurrently, and it was super stressful. I was still learning a lot of lessons here. There
Yeah.
was a microphone upgrade somewhere in the middle of that because I went to a better microphone. Um, I went to a large diaphragm condenser because my space was a bit more treated and a bit better.
Yes.
That's about the time when we first talked about a custom preset for my space. Oh, I wish I would have gotten it then, but bygones be. So,
So
I
let's
just
do.
remembered there was a bunch of stuff I had to re-record because I upgraded my equipment.
Oh, right, right.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
want to talk about that. So you went from the Focusrite bundle, which is the Focusrite mic. It's pretty inexpensive, but it was the first upgrade, and that's good. I think incremental changes for equipment and room treatment and stuff is fine. You're learning as you go. I mean, that happens constantly. Um,
sure.
and then so the next mic is the one that you upgraded to is the mic you're using now. Is that correct?
No, I got the Rode NT1A.
Okay, great mic. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know how I ended up there, but I think I read a bunch of reviews and just sort of searched around for what a good entry-level studio microphone is, and that answer came up a lot. And it came with a bundle of everything I needed, shock mount, etc. So I was like, well, seems like the right choice for now, because until I know better, it's going to work fine. And that was the microphone that I think you did your initial sample presets for me on, which sounded fantastic. But I was just not in a place where I was convinced quite yet that this is what I wanted to do. I mean, I knew that I wanted to and that I liked it. I wasn't so certain that I wanted to go down that road just yet. I thought, there's more stuff I can learn. There's more stuff I can do.
Gotcha. When you say you weren't sure if you wanted to do it, you were saying take the jump to the preset yet, or from equipment standpoint?
Yeah. Take the jump to the custom preset that's tailored to me in my space. And I can't really say why. It's just I don't think I was quite ready. The space wasn't quite ready. I wasn't quite there with with my level. So
let me make a couple points to there, because I want to share and teach as we go through this. Only sharing with my followers and people that are interested in this topic, your growth. I think that's hugely valuable, but also that happens a lot. Some people will come to me and then I'll say, and by the way, if you are interested in just getting kind of a diagnosis, really, you could send me your raw audio. All the details are on my website. If you're watching this for the first time and you're not familiar with what I do, I make custom processing presets to optimize the sound. But what usually happens, like in your case, Theo, you came to me, you had, I would say, a mid-level, mid-priced, low-mid quality microphone, and I think Rode is fantastic. I have an NT1, and I think they're great mics. But sometimes I'll write back and say, hey, this is what I could come up with. By the way, I think it could probably sound better if you were to fix this in your room. I had to do a lot of EQing. I can give a diagnosis, and I'll share this. I want to have you back. You and I are gonna talk again on Saturday if you can do it. Can you do that for the live?
Oh yeah.
And what we're gonna do is I want to go through somebody else's audio, and we're gonna diagnose it, and we're gonna walk through like, okay, let's look at the recording level. Let's listen to the room, and I want to hear the audio with you. I want you to ask questions. I'm going to say, hey, this is what I hear, and this is how it can improve. Just the raw audio, not even talking about plugins and stuff yet. What's the, is the mic position right? How is the mic with, reference to the room? So I want to do that with you on Saturday. Maybe we'll shoot for 8 o'clock again. I'm going to put a notice out so you can join us for that. But I think that's going to be really valuable if you're interested in improving the quality of your audio. But what I will say is a lot of people come to me first and they go, yeah, I think it could be better. Let me ask you, did I share that with you? Did I say, hey, this is what I came up with? Did I add any kind of suggestions, or did I just say, hey, this is what I can come up with that first one? Do you remember?
I think, it's the lines are a bit blurred for me now because, as you said, we did like 10 back and forths with this latest round. But if I recall correctly, you sent me back a processed version of my raw recording on the NT1, but it wasn't loudness matched to the recording levels I was using for ACX. So at first, when I heard it, I was like, well, that's strange. Why does my crappy little Scarlett... Well, I take that back. It's not crappy. It's just budget and inexpensive. And
it's okay.
I thought...
It's okay. They're not sponsors yet. It's okay.
They're not listening. Okay, let's hope they're not listening. No. Listen, that Scarlett mic is actually... I'll have more things to say about that later if we have time. But... because in retrospect, I should have probably gotten the presets before I got the Rode. That would have done me better. But that's an aside. Let's just say that I got your processed sound, but it wasn't loudness matched to the loudness levels that I was using.
Right.
And I remember writing you going, Lenny, I'm sorry if this comes off as arrogant, but mine sounds better. and then you came back and said, oh, I know why this is. Look up the what is it, the
Munson curve.
The curve. Munson curve. That's right.
Yes, it is a scientific fact that in louder audio is perceived as better. So if you have two identical files, one is processed and sounds great, and the other is processed and sound great. And if actually the level on the file, I'm not talking about recording level, and this gets a little bit deep into the audio engineering, but this is the things that I teach you, and you become a better producer and an engineer for your own stuff. The louder file, if it's louder, will be perceived as better by the listener. They won't know why. They're just louder, and it's the Charles Munson curve. I can't mispronounce it, but it is research that was done in the 30s, and what happens is at louder volumes, same audio, but if it's louder, it's a human hearing condition that we actually hear the frequencies more flat and consistent. You hear more highs and more you hear more high and more low frequencies as even as the mid ones when it's louder. When it's quieter, you hear just the mid-range. This is why the telephone sounds like it does. Telephones are intelligible speech in that mid-range, and that's the clarity. It's also to save bandwidth back in the day when they made it, they created telephones. But that mid-range is where humans, it's evolution. It's where humans really can hear the best at even low volumes. So at louder, we hear the highs and lows more equally. It's just science. So we're going way ahead of ourselves here. If you're able to make your files louder, you have an advantage, and that's mastering.
Absolutely.
I have a course about that. You are kind enough to be part of the course, which is awesome.
That's right.
Another reason why I wanted to have you on today, and we'll talk about mastering in the mastering course. But yes, so let's rewind again. I'm sorry. Continue now with.
Yeah, so you sent me back my processed file, but it wasn't loudness matched. So when I heard it to my ear, my Scarlett mic that was mastered for ACX loudness standards sounded better, and I thought, Lenny, sorry, but this sounds better. And then you wrote back very kindly, did not take offense to that, and said, I think I know why that is. Here's why. And you sent me a link on the Fletcher-Munson curve, and I got an education from that. And then, but you also sent me a processed file that was loudness matched to my original file. And then I really heard the difference. I was like, okay, all my S's have been dialed down. All the room resonance is gone. My mids and lows are balanced. Everything sounds amazing. And to be fair, at the time, I didn't really understand all those details yet.
Right.
It's kind of, I'm applying a little bit of retrospective analysis here, but I definitely heard the difference. And that's why I was impressed.
You've come a long way as an engineer, just yourself. I mean, you're, excuse me, you engineer your own stuff. So, but learning these little pieces and I love sharing those type of things. But yet, it's kind of like just it's almost like unheartening it's almost like I don't know. Depressing is not the right word. To realize that. Is that all it is? It's just volume. So if I make things louder, people even think it's better. It's like, I'm doing all this work, but if I just make it louder, it's kind of shocking that it made that much of a difference.
But simple things make a big difference, don't they?
They do. And when, what do they say in football? The game is won in the inches, right? It's the smallest little things. It's the,
That's right.
They're pushed back 5 yards, and that could be the difference between the whole game sometimes. And I think that, I'm not one for sports analogies. That was kind of odd for me, but
it works.
But yes, but it proves the point, right? And so, learning these little things about mastering or about EQing or getting rid of the resonance or just fixing a slight little echo that's happening only in the low frequencies in your room, that can push you just a little bit further and give you a little bit more of an advantage. And they start stacking up after a while. And if you're competing, and let me throw one more thing, it's not just the sounds. I think a lot of people feel like they've got a sound problem when they have a marketing problem. Maybe you're not trying to connect, or you're advertising, or you're not putting yourself out there or describing yourself correctly with talking about your passions as an artist or as a creative person. Maybe you're not connecting. I've noticed more people have that problem than a sound problem, or sound isn't preventing them as much as them not marketing themselves correctly. So, brilliant information, and hearing this, I feel like the stuff that we're talking about is going to help people move forward with their careers and what you're and like what you're doing. So please continue on your your growth and your business expansion. So we spoke, but you still stopped for a little while. You paused before getting a preset, which is totally fine. A lot of people end up coming back to me after they've done some work in their room or upgraded their equipment. Continue.
Yeah, so there's just one thing I'd like to add to your previous statement, which is it's not necessarily a sound problem. It might be a marketing problem, but it might also be a confidence problem, right?
Agreed.
Because how you sound to yourself.
Yep.
We've all had that moment in our life. I think most people go through this when they hear a recording of themselves for the first time. Maybe it was in childhood, maybe it was later in life, but you hear yourself on a voicemail or something. You go, oh, that's not what I really sound like, is it?
Right.
Oh, that
Right.
hurts.
Right.
So that's one of those things that is more actually important than one might imagine, because in particular, the loudness factor. I felt like when I heard that loudness, then I felt like my voice was more represented. Before I heard that, I couldn't quite understand the nuance. But when that voice became more represented, that's when I heard the processing and the balance and all the things that were in there, because it brought out the richness. So that's just to say that the mastering aspect is huge. And I'm going through that mastering course right now, going slowly, because I'm finding that thematically, this information is, for whatever reason, is just harder for me to absorb and understand than some of the other stuff.
Is it really?
But
listen, you know, Theo, I'm going to put this on the screen again, just as I want to show it. The mastering is it's course number 5. I've got training courses. Yes, this is we used to call this a shameless plug, but I really think this can help people. My mastering course, it's number 5 here. Theo, you're actually one of the examples in the course. It's my newest course. I released it a couple weeks ago. If you're interested in learning how to meet loudness standards like ACX, or just if there's no loudness standard, you're sending something even to a client. If you want to learn how to get your recording level louder, or not your recording level, I'm sorry, that scratches up the opposite of that. You need your recording level has to be correct, but if you want to get your final file louder and be able to use that advantage, that course is fantastic. Listen, Theo, if you are having challenges on certain parts, I love that you're going through the course right now. Let's talk about it. I think you may be a regular. I think you may be a regular on the Lenny B Live YouTube, because you're a wealth of information and confidence and sharing. I think it's great. If you'll be a guest, I think we should do it often. But I'd love to just talk about mastering one day with you, because the questions you have are going to be the same questions other people have, and I'll answer them and then explain that you can go to the course to get all this information. And by the way, lennyb.com is my website. The course is available now, and I'm so proud of it. It's the last one I've done. It's the latest one, and I think it's like from a production standpoint and explaining, I think it's the best one, because my stuff keeps getting better. I feel I'm more confident about the stuff that I'm putting together. So
but anyway, look, I'm here as much as you'll have me, and I'm super grateful for that. This is fantastic.
Let's do this. Theo, I keep interrupting you. I'm so sorry. I feel like a jerk. I'm so sorry.
Do.
If people want to send you, follow you on Instagram or whatever you're on, YouTube or not, if you don't have any social media, how can people just say hi, give you some props, ask you questions maybe? How do they get in touch with you?
Sure.
Hire you? Maybe somebody wants to hire you.
I'm not really on social media all that much. Email's the best way for me. My website's just my name, theopolo.com. You can email me at polocreativeco@protonmail.com. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. You know, I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable about this stuff, but I'm happy to share with somebody who's looking to get in on the journey. So,
you know, I've told you this before. Anybody, I mean, you're on this path, right? You went from your first audio book and you're on the path, and now you're doing, we're going to talk about and learn about, I want to hear about what you're doing today. But anybody that's earlier on this path is a student of yours. I mean, you could teach them something to help them follow their dreams and goals. So thank you for doing that. At the end of this video, or at the end of this recording, this live that we're doing, I'll put your website, the link, and I'll put your email in there as well. Okay, we're just wrapping. Cool. Yeah. And I appreciate it, man. I really do appreciate you being available for this. So again, we were talking about mastering and kind of moving forward. Continue.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, as a as a kind of a reverse plug for your mastering course, it's it is really good content because it allows you to integrate and sort of consolidate everything you've learned up until this point, because ultimately there's so much stuff that happens before the mastering process, and all of that stuff is important and it does make a really noticeable difference. But unless you reach the proper levels and unless you can deliver the final client audio to the standard that they want,
Yes.
none of anything you've done before that ultimately matters. Because
Absolutely.
look, I can spend 6 hours producing a file for ACX, but if I don't pass their sound lab, it's not getting accepted, and
Right.
and I'm not meeting the deadline. It's just that simple. So the mastering really is important, and I think for me personally, it's a challenge because there are so many ways of thinking about sound, of thinking about how the human ear perceives loudness, what we are trying to do, how we are using the limiter as a compressor. All of these things, they're, for whatever reason, they're uniquely challenging to me. Somebody might not have that problem. Somebody might have that issue with EQ or something else.
Right.
But I found it to be particularly insightful, and it's taking me longer. But I actually appreciate that more because I can see that on the end of this is another evolutionary step, so to speak, where I'm going to be able to know what I have to do to my sound in order to meet the particular requirements of a client or anticipate maybe even what they're looking for. So that's really quite important. You're right, we are running ahead a little bit, but ultimately I think it's valuable for people to know that they can find that here as well, because that will be a step in the process if you get to that level. So yeah,
I'm sorry. I love the course, and I think it does offer such an advantage. I can't tell you how much, if you know how to master and if you're good at it, and it's not that complicated, and this course, the mastering course, goes you through it. If you have the skill, I think it really gives you a pretty big advantage, even just auditioning. And by the way, it's not just voiceover artists looking to make money doing 60-second spots or audiobooks or whatever. This is anybody creating audio content or video content. This is YouTubers, this is podcasters, this is anybody that wants to make a better connection with their audience. And there's a lot of content creation these days. It's almost at the center of everything. If you've got a business, you've got to create content to tell your story. So I think this all these courses and being able to make better audio. You've heard that before, right? The movies, they talk, even in film, it's like it's 80% audio, and the video is just supports the story, and the audio is where all the emotion, or a lot of the emotion, is. I'm a fan of audio, so I believe that a lot too. But you get your audio right, and you could really make a strong connection. You could make someone feel a certain way, and that's powerful. Feel a certain way to want to buy something. Feel a certain way to want to vote a certain way. Feel a certain way to want to come back and hear more. I mean, if you can do that, that is a skill, and these are all the tools. So, and it all kind of compounds, and that's the stuff that I teach. It's like, hey, we got to get your recording level right, and there's room treatment, there's all these things, a workflow, and doing it in the right order, and processing them up to mastering.
And to add to that, sorry to interrupt you this time, but to add to that, I think it's really important also to remember that audio, like, somebody might watch this, right? And they might say, well, I just don't care about audio that much, right? Yeah, I want to sound pretty good, but I don't
sounds good
it's
enough.
Not that interesting to me.
Yeah.
And fair enough. But let me tell you this, audio is not just audio, because audio includes so many stages of development along the way. It includes so many learning curves that, to me, looking back now, I can clearly see the evolution of the steps that I had to take as, in my commitment, in my discipline, in my workflow, in my construction of building this box that I spend most of my time in now, right? All of these steps, they've all been contributing to the development and growth of my new career. And it really is, once you make the commitment and you take that leap forward, you decide this is what you want to do, it is, for all intents and purposes, your new career. Now, you might be at the very early stages, it might not be very successful yet.
Right.
Whatever the case may be, you are laying the foundational stones of your future growth. So you might be learning about mastering, but it's not just mastering. It's about what clients are looking for. It's about what the different platforms are requiring. It's about what, where you make that emotional connection with the listener. There's so much stuff wrapped into it. So sound is not just sound. There's a reason why our voices are unique signatures to us.
Right.
There's so much of your being wrapped up into it that it's a
Yes.
lot more important than just what level is your gain peaking at,
It's so true. It compounds. Theo, I want to kind of focus us and drive us into two different directions here, because I could talk to you for a long time. I could talk to you forever. I'm
Likewise.
definitely going to have you back. We're going to do Saturday where we're going to diagnose somebody else's audio, and I want to teach you. I want to teach you, at least you, from engineering standpoint, what I'm hearing, and you can ask questions, and then I want to take questions. I'm say hi real quick to Corey J, VO artist, joined us and left a few comments. By the way, you could comment today and say hi, or if you have a question. I'm not sure if we're not going to have enough time today, but we'll do that for sure on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock
Sure.
Pacific time is what I'm thinking. And I'll send out a reminder to any of the subscribers from the YouTube channel, and from if you're on my newsletter list, and get details at lennyb.com for the stuff that we're doing here, and join the emailing list and all that stuff. I want to kind of fast forward a little. I want to do two things. I want to fast forward a little bit to your equipment, and I want you to share, and we could even go back later and talk more about this, but share what
Sure.
you're doing today, the final equipment, and then how I want to get a picture of what your voiceover effort career looks like today, and maybe a little bit about where you want to take it. And then I want to listen to your raw audio, and then listen to the processing that we just recently set you up with. Those are the kind of the two things to kind of wrap up here, because an hour goes like that with you, and which is awesome. I really appreciate you doing this with me today.
My pleasure. Yeah, sure, Lenny. So the long story short with the audio was that I resisted doing the acoustic treatment for a long time. And eventually I got that email from you, because I know we went back and forth a few times, and I asked you about because I had a friend who was selling some equipment, and I was thinking about upgrading my equipment, and there were a few combinations and things that were open to me. And eventually you just sent me that email that said, in no uncertain terms, Theo, none of that is going to matter as much as properly treating your space. So I don't know what it was, but that finally sank through, and I decided, okay, I've made investments in my space. I've made investments in my equipment. I have a microphone.
I feel bad because I have to tell people that so often, and I feel like I'm killing dreams, because somebody's like, they're salivating over like, oh, this microphone, and somebody's selling it and it's half price, and I've always wanted this microphone. I feel so bad, because it's like, okay, you're going to get that. You're going to spend that money, and you're still going to have the problem that you're having with your sound.
That's right.
Unless you treat your room. It's everything. It's one of the reasons why it's one of the early courses, acoustic treatment. It is so everything. So you believe me now. I'm sure you did before, but it's natural for people just to feel like, but when I get this microphone, I'm going to get that sound. But I have to tell people, and I feel horrible sometimes, like, it's not going to give you what you want. It may look like it, and boy, that microphone is sexy. It is a nice looking mic. I know, I agree. I'm with you. I love gear too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. And it's just one of those classic cases of, listened but did not hear. Or is that how the saying goes?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I heard you say it, but it didn't have the meaning to me that it needed to have before I could take action. And so, but something along those lines, I think it was also seeing the number of people who were working professionally on an NT1 and did not, that they had really good quality sound.
Right.
And I thought, come on, it's a new, latest generation, large diaphragm studio condenser. It's got to be good enough. There has to be other things I can do rather than, at 4 or 5 times the cost, buying a new microphone or a new channel strip or something else.
Actually,
and so
a better microphone will pick up the room problems better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly right. So I finally went ahead and I did the acoustic treatment that you recommended. And for a fraction of the cost of a new microphone, already had a tremendous difference. But it just so happened that I also got lucky with a microphone upgrade at the same time.
Yes.
And so that's how I kind of ended up in this final situation that I have, which is a fully treated space. And in retrospect, I probably did not need to take the final hardware upgrade because for what I'm doing right now, which is audiobooks primarily, I don't see any reason to upgrade to a Neumann from a Rode. For the ad space, which is the next step that I'm looking forward to and trying to break into, the name clout itself may give me a vote or two extra.
Listen, when you,
but
I'm going to use some really big brands here, but I'll tell you, I think a lot of it has to do with confidence and the way you feel. Because if
Sure.
you drive and pull up to your 30-year reunion in a 1979 Datsun that's primer and is smoking a little bit, out of the tailpipe, versus pulling up in a glossy Mercedes, you're going to enter the place
Sure.
a little bit differently. That's human nature, and I'm cool with that. I think you deserve, if you are earning money and you want to reinvest it in yourself, I think that's a great investment. When we invest money into somebody else, there's risks. There's a lot more risks involved. And then, when you invest in yourself or equipment that you're going to use and it's going to help you and your confidence, you're the only one that you have to answer to, as my dad would say.
Yes.
So investing in yourself, you're either going to make it worth it or you don't. But I feel like, and I know this is, because I buy a ton of equipment too. You deserve to have the stuff that you want in your brain that's going to help you feel better. So I think that's very real. The way it looks to you, nobody else even may see your microphone unless you post a picture or you're doing some kind of marketing or video or whatever. But
Agreed.
I really I think it's value. It has merit to it. It's got weight, and so I don't think it's a bad idea to get that stuff eventually when it's smart and you can. And girl dad is making sure he's taking care of everything else.
Yes, that's right. You're exactly right. You shouldn't. I agree with you that it does matter and that it can be helpful. I would just hate for anyone to get discouraged if they had to work on the mere, Scarlett Bundle microphone, because they can absolutely achieve their voiceover dreams on a Scarlett Bundle microphone,
right,
without upgrading even to an NT1, not to mention a Neumann. I think it's just the question of what you want to do, how successful you want to be, and are you making those advancements? Eventually, yes, the time will come to upgrade your equipment, as it did for me. In retrospect, I think I might have done it a little too soon and a little out of order, but I don't regret it. I think it's fine.
This is a really important, quick little anecdote or story I want to tell you. I just was contacted, and I'm starting to work more with podcasters and people who do podcasts, and they're also doing it on YouTube. Just to help with their audio, and they want a broadcast type of sound, and they're looking for something specific. But I'm starting to work more consulting, not only with sound but even content. And I can tell you that the audio doesn't matter as much as people think. And listen, I'm all about audio quality, but you're absolutely right, because I'm getting these people coming to me and they want to fix their audio. But then they're like, hey, I'll get an initial email. Hey, Lenny, my wife and I are doing a podcast, and it's about, they're reviewing music. This recent couple that came to me, and they would say, like, our audio doesn't sound this. We want it to sound better, and they list the equipment they're using. I'm like, yeah, that's if they really want a good sound, they're gonna have to change the type of mics and the positioning and blah blah. The technical stuff starts coming into my mind. But
Yeah.
so they've got mediocre audio, or it's just not being done right. But they've got over 3 million views on their most popular video, and they've got almost 170,000 subscribers on YouTube. So that proves the point.
Oh
crappy
yeah.
audio or less than optimal audio, doesn't matter. You could still
Right.
make a connection with people. You could still grow your channel. You could still get the job. You could still voice an audiobook. If your audio isn't optimal, it's more about the connection that you're making and that emotional connection. That emotional connection
Absolutely.
is the most important. Now, if we can make that even better, you'll be better at what you're doing. But you can't. It's like the Beatles songs. Where are you going, Lenny B? This is the truth. You could play any Beatles song on the acoustic guitar, and it's a good song.
That's right.
Most of them are fantastic, amazing, different level, right? Even if it's being done as a cover on an acoustic guitar, it still holds up. It's the content, it's the words, it's the chord changes, it's the feeling. Now, is
It's
it
the
recorded?
Beatles.
Right, right. So I'm, I always try to put that into perspective. Your mic, your room treatment isn't going to make you successful. It's everything all together and sharing yourself. I think that's what's
That's
going to
right.
make it's there's synergy in that, and it really can put you over the top. Let's talk about the equipment you have now that you're using now. And I know we're fast forwarding. I want to tell me a little bit about what your days look like, and if you're doing what you're doing, is it a full-time thing? Are you supplementing your income with tell me about your audio and your career today.
Sure. Yeah. So one more chaser to the last point, which is that
Please.
the acoustic treatment was so important that had I really zeroed in on the effects of it first, I probably would not have upgraded the mic to a
Mike.
Neumann. Yeah, because I'm quite happy with the way that my NT1 sounds in a well treated space.
Okay.
But no regrets. With respect to the sound or the production schedule and the career right now, I'm still I'm doing back-to-back audiobooks. Basically, have a steady supply of those. What I'm finding is that don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful for it. What I'm finding it is that it is tiresome because it's a lot of hours in the studio and
Right.
it's a lot of hours of editing. For
Yep.
long form content is a great way to do voiceover and to make a living if you can do it, but it does, it is a drain on the resources. I always pictured having a bit more of a dynamic experience in voiceover
When
where
you say resources, you're talking about your bandwidth and time,
that's
right?
right.
Your
That's
your
right.
your energy resources.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Because when you break it down, you know, you want to produce a minimum of a finished hour per day. Just if you want to have a reasonable shot at having a livable income, a full-time income, and you want to work full-time doing voiceover in audiobooks, that's a finished hour per day. But your job's not done with a finished hour because that includes everything. That includes your recording, your prep work. Let's start with that. Your recording, your editing, your processing, your mastering, your uploading and managing all your files and all your backups and all those things. But
Vito,
it's
let me ask you a question. I think you and I should do an episode on just this. Because I know where you're going with this. You're just saying, I'm not sure if the audiobook thing is me and I maybe want to get more in the commercial space and do other things. It's not where, would
yeah.
your thought process, would your attitude towards audiobooks or long form content, let's just say that, would your attitude or your approach to it feel differently for you if you were making more money for less work? I mean, I know the answer. I'm telling, or maybe I don't. If you were doing subjects that you liked, and instead of having to do 3, you were making the same amount of money on just doing 1, so you're having to put less effort, less bandwidth, less brain power. Would that change your feeling towards it? It's a legit question.
Yes and no. It's a difficult question because we'd have to get into the nuance of, well, how much less work and for how much more, obviously if you drive that ratio apart enough, anybody's answer would be yes, who's sane, right? But it's not all about that. It's more like, what is it that you thrive on? Where is your niche? Where is the ecosystem that you want to be? because
Gotcha.
because different people are different, and you know this very well. There's probably some aspects of your studio work that you really enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
and other aspects of
Yes,
your studio work that you're
that I
like,
don't.
oh, I
Right.
just
Right.
wish I had someone else to do it.
Right. Right.
But that might not be the case for someone else. Somebody else has a different perspective, or just a different, they work in a different gear, or they
Yes.
enjoy different things. Somebody really hates editing blue lines in a DAW,
Yep.
and that's me. I hate editing blue lines in a DAW. Less that I can do of that is great, but for someone else, they might love it. So I think for me, the answer to your question is yes. It would be different if that ratio was skewed enough.
Mm-hmm.
But in practical purposes, I can't go charging $1,000 per finished hour of audio to produce audiobooks. If I did, I wouldn't have any work.
Yeah.
Certainly not. I'm not Simon Vance, right? I don't have the experience and the backlog and just that all around recognizable voice that everybody knows. When they think audiobook, they think Simon Vance is like the ultimate, right? So because of that, I have to think, all right, what's the right balance? And I don't
By the
want
way,
to sit. Yeah.
I completely disagree with you. I feel
Okay.
like I totally feel I disagree with you. I feel like you, Theo, have everything necessary to make that much money. You have all the tools necessary. And I want to talk about this because you could say BS on me all day, and I want to discuss it because I think it's I think it's a mindset. Um, I feel like you have everything necessary. What you don't have is you're not connecting with somebody that sees the value. There is somebody that would pay a large amount of money if they go, that's the guy, I've got this project, that's the guy I need. And because people are at different levels, maybe they've just come off their fifth project. And they go, you know what, for the next one, I'm going to find the right person for this because I know that the synergy happens. It's a discussion for another time, but I'm only
No, no,
telling you this
you
to
know what?
inspire
I
you.
understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I appreciate that. I think I do agree with you about the tools. The tools, perhaps, um, the marketing and the system behind it, no, and also the impetus is probably where I'm going with this. Is it's not really exactly my thing. I'm
I
getting to
get
the
it.
point where I've done
I
this
know.
for 6 months straight, nose to the grindstone
Yes.
every day, full
Yes.
time, and and I am I don't want anybody to misunderstand, because I am exceedingly grateful for
Yes.
the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
And if this is the only way that I can make a living in voiceover, I will continue to make
Right.
a living in
Yes.
voiceover doing
But
this, and I won't complain.
any college
However,
student, any college student can change their major. That's what you're telling me.
that's right. Yes, I'm getting to the point where I think, okay, we've made a little bit of headway in this direction. What else is out there? What
Yeah.
else can I do?
Yes.
How can I explore and broaden my horizon? So that's what I'm working on right now. And for me, it seems like that natural direction is the ad space, commercial voiceover, as they call it,
Yep.
because it's much shorter form. It's much more dynamic. There's acting and projection and different styles
Yes.
involved, and it's a much richer realm than you get to explore all the different facets of voiceover, as opposed to just doing long form content narration. So
Theo, man, please take me along on your in-brain discussions when you figure out because it sounds like you're like evolving as a voiceover artist. I'd love to talk to you more about this kind of thing because the one thing you just told me is that you are thinking, okay, what else is out there, and you're thinking, you're investigating. I think if you pull into that search your authentic passions and interests, and think about, so maybe it's commercial, but what type of commercials are you going to be talking? What subjects are you an expert on? What are the things that you will speak on better than anybody else because you have an intimate relationship? Is it, I'm just going to throw some stupid topics. Is it gardening? Is it travel? I mean, you're living in a different country. Is it, there's certain things you probably know more about and you have more experience about those subjects. So now you're not just a commercial voiceover artist, because there's a million of those, but you're a commercial voiceover artist, possibly. I'm talking about marketing and where we're going here and where you want to go. I'm a commercial voiceover artist specializing in the subjects of this, and this. Now you're your own brand, and now you've got things. I'd love to talk to you more about that as you investigate. And I feel you, man. You're okay to modify and adjust and evolve what you want to do. It's wonderful that you've been as successful as you have. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to share your story with people, because I think it's inspiring. But it's also, I think the success that you've experienced also is proving to you, because everybody's got this. I'm one of them. Any creative person is like, well, anybody can do what I do. Everybody has that feeling. So I think knowing this success that you've had so far is allowing you to go, well, what else is out? Maybe I can do these things, and it's giving you that. So, but it's all these incremental jumps that you've made, and that's why. And you're a genuinely cool guy and polite and well spoken. So, I made a good choice.
Lenny. Thank you so much.
I made a good choice to have you on. A couple little, I call these house cleaning items that I want to take care of real quick. Please leave a comment and a question here, because even after this live is over, we're going to do more lives, but I will respond if you've got questions on the things that we've been talking about. Whatever it is, if you've got a question for Theo, you can leave them in the comments here, and one of us will get back to you, and we'll, by all means, if it's on audio, any kind of engineering or sound treatment, or even just ramping up your career or whatever, the discussion I think is very valuable. So even if it's not currently live right now, leave those questions. I'll put some information about how you could submit your audio. If you're interested in doing like Theo did for getting a custom processing preset. And that's kind of what I want to talk about now as we wrap up. I can't believe we've been on for as long as we have. What does it looks like? Almost an hour and a half here. It's great.
Time flies.
Well, when you're having fun, it does. So
that's right.
Let's talk about this real quick. TLM 103, Focusrite 2i2,
yes,
fourth
sir.
Generation.
Yes.
You don't use the auto gain because you know how to set the proper gain yourself.
That's correct. I do now.
Good man. And then tell me a little bit about your recent or your latest acoustic treatment and what you've learned. And then we're jump into my Logic, and we're going to listen to your raw audio, and then we're going to listen to your processed audio and talk a little bit about what this has done for you. Give me your sound treatment stuff that you've got right now.
Sure. Yeah. So I started out, part of that Go Ugly step was just, I literally bought boxes at IKEA, and I built myself a room out of boxes. And that, believe it or not, that was how I recorded the first audiobook, just with boxes. So cardboard, nothing else. That was a mistake. I probably should have put some foam on the cardboard in retrospect, but
worked.
Bygones. That was the next step. I ended up getting foam panels after I got my first project. I was like, okay, once I got that contract, I was like, we need a little bit more improvement here. If I'm remembering correctly, I got the foam panels just before I recorded that first project.
Okay.
And then for the longest time, I resisted. I, played with sound. I tried to modify and process it. You tested some samples for me, but that was the period that you were telling me sound treatment. And I was like, but Lenny, I have a friend who has an art voice channel. I could get that, and I could get a Sennheiser microphone. And you were like, Theo,
I know.
You're going to be better off with sound treatment in your space than you are with a $2,000 investment in audio gear. And I'm so glad I listened to you.
And also, it's ambiguous, right? You say sound treatment, it's like, what does that mean? There's so many different things.
Yeah.
And Amazon and panels and thickness and foam and this and that. And it gets really confusing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when I did your acoustic treatment course, it really laid it out for me, because I understood that absorption of frequencies is what matters.
Yes.
Rock wool is the material that does that optimally, and these are the types of acoustic panels that you want. So I went on and I did the layout, and
So wait, this is really important too. So you went to GIK Acoustics, and if you are
yes,
taking, I'm going to put it on the screen again here. Hold on a second. I'm figuring this out as we go. If you are my acoustic treatment course, it's number 2 here on the list that you're looking at. It is so fantastic because if you don't know acoustic treatment, what does that mean? What do the panels do? Why is it so important? How is it going to change my sound? What should I buy? There's so many different things. These Amazon things are really cheap. They say they will do 90% of the echo in the room. I'll show you what to buy, where to place it, what not to buy, what's not going to work for voiceover, because there's there's sound treatment for restaurants and they just want to minimize the
right.
din, or they want to minimize that ambient sound. There's sound treatment for classrooms and auditoriums. My course is acoustic treatment for voiceover recording. You need to get rid of all those reflections, but and then I suggest, and I use in my room, I've got GIK acoustic panels all over the place. I purchased them. It was an investment, but I wanted to see what's the real stuff and why. And that I learned, and then this is the course that I put out to you. So I want to so you went to the GIK Acoustics website, and they have a little calculator. You figured out what was necessary for your room, what it would take. You didn't have to buy anything. It's free to do that little calculator.
That's right.
So you could say, okay, this is what they would do. And the cool thing is they're a huge company. They ship worldwide. So tell me how that worked out for you.
Well, I never ended up actually getting any of their panels because of the logistics and because of the time frame that I was working on.
Yeah.
But I did internalize the concept of, for sound absorption,
Thick.
you want that thick sound frequency absorbing material. Yes. And Rockwool is a good bet for that.
Yes.
And lo and behold, I already had boxes on every side of me. So I thought, hey, what if I just bought enough of that Rockwool absorbing material at a Home Depot equivalent here and stuffed those boxes to the gills, and I would essentially end up with 12-inch thick Rockwool walls, right?
What is the Finland equivalent? What is the name of the store to Home Depot in Finland?
It's called Bauhaus.
Oh, of course. It's also the
there
Art
you go.
Mecca
It's
Center.
all there. Yeah. Bauhaus. I went and I filled my trunk with these huge shrink wrapped packages of Rockwool panels, 3-inch thick, and I stuffed them into the boxes, at varying angles and degrees, so that there was redistribution of sound inside. So all in all, I think I have close to, well, the minimum I have is 6 inches on one side and on the ceiling, and then the maximum all around the walls is, I think, 9 inches. So I ended up with 9 inches total Rockwool, and that was.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's great. Yeah. My course makes the suggestion for GIK Acoustics. You don't need to buy anything from them, but you need to know what they would maybe suggest, or the type of panels and the thickness and the reason why thicker panels get lower frequencies, and you have to get rid of those lower frequencies. It can give you an education. The course suggests GIK Acoustics, but absolutely, you do not need to buy anything from them. I have their panels, and I stand up for their panels. I will say that, if you get these, this is going to work, but you could also do it other ways. Online, there's also, as long as you understand the concept of thicker Rockwool or fiberglass panels, one, they're hazardous. You got to be careful working with them because it's carcinogenic material, so you got to wear a mask, and it has to be wrapped and the whole thing if you're going to do it yourself. But once you understand that the thickness has a lot to do with the absorption of lower frequencies, the thicker the panel, the better. So, I mean, the course goes through all that stuff. But we're going to listen now to your audio, and even just right now, this live, whatever your microphone, you're using your TLM 103 right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
I mean, it sounds dead in that room. And when I say dead, that means I don't hear any reflections.
That's a good thing.
That's a great thing, yes. Because the voice, when you record on a microphone and there's no reflections, the voice sounds like it's coming from in your head. And that's really how you make that emotional connection, right? When sound bounces off the walls and it's not being absorbed by acoustic treatment, that really gives us depth. We feel like the person is in a space. And producers for music use that constantly. I want the drums to seem a little bit further back in the mix. I want the vocalist to be a little closer. I want the backup harmonies to be wide and far away.
Sure.
They use reflections, they use reverb in real spaces, in real rooms, or with plugins. They use it for that reason. What we want to do is null those reflections. I want your pure voice. And you've understood that, you've learned that, and we're going to listen now to, I want to hear your audio. You can hear it here, but if somebody were to go to your website, do you have demos of your most recent sound available that people can listen to?
No, I have demos only on the pay-to-play sites that I'm working on. I don't have a fully functioning website with demos up just yet because I haven't gotten that far in my commercial steps. But by the time they watch this, maybe, hopefully, one day, not in the too distant future, we will have that at theopolo.com, so we'll check it out.
Can I put your pay-to-play site profile page on here?
Yeah, absolutely. I will have to get that to you because I don't have it up. So
no worries. I mean, if you want to, it's up to you. Just so people can go and let me see what Theo's doing. I think it's going to inspire people to go, oh, I mean, I see what his sound like. You could see how different your sound is to someone else's. You can compare and just kind of listen. And but I'm just so happy that I was able to help you with a lot of this stuff. Terry Weiss Winkler just purchased the mastering course. Thank you so much for the support. You're going to love it. Terry, you're going to love it. And if you've got any questions, I'm here to help you. But thank you so much for that. All right, so let's do this. So we've got the TLM 103. Man, good for you with those boxes. And you did your own thing. What would you say, as I'm going to make sure we can get your audio here on the screen. Tell me about what the difference was, foam or the boxes or whatever you had, and then you stepped in the room and you started recording when you had that Rockwell, the proper thick treatment. And obviously, not everybody can do this. They don't have the space, they don't have the money to do it, but you could also do it incrementally, and also sometimes just mic placement, which is actually what we kind of did a lot of this last time working. There's also little mic techniques and things you can do to work into the treatment that you do have at the moment that could help. But I guess my question is, while I get the audio on the screen with my, so we can listen to your example before and after the processing, what was it like? Excuse me. What did you hear post latest acoustic treatment? What was the difference?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think that the biggest thing for me was listening back to the raw sound.
Okay.
Whenever I listened back to the raw recording, I found that after the treatment, I could just turn up the gain and export the file. Like it was good enough, aside from minor things like mouth clicks or, I don't know what else to bring up at the moment, but the main thing was that before, using the raw file without noise reduction, processing, major adjustments to the loudness normalization was not feasible. It was just not good enough audio for that. But once the treatment was done, if I had to, I could just if the raw file was all I had, I could literally just up the gain on that file to get it to a proper level and send that out. And I would be okay with auditioning that way if I had to. And that's such a huge breakthrough because then once you layer the sound treatment and the processing on top of it, that's when you really get the major difference.
A good raw file allows the processing to optimize instead of fix. That's what I talk about in a lot of my videos. It's like, okay, let me hear what you're working with here. And if I use the EQ to fix, I could try to get some of those resonances. Because what happens is, and a lot of people know this already, I feel like I'm always repeating myself, but I know that there's always new people learning this as constantly. And I think you'll attest to this, those reflections cause interactions with your pure voice. So my pure voice goes to the microphone, but my voice keeps going, hits the wall, bounces back behind me, and then the reflection goes into the microphone. and it interacts with my pure voice as I'm speaking. This happens in milliseconds, by the way. And what happens is it causes phase, and it causes certain frequency spaces depending upon the size of your room and the distance of those reflections and the distance that they have to travel. It's a physics thing. It can null out or amplify certain frequency spaces, and that causes a blurry image, an audio image. And once you remove those, you're hearing pure voice, and it just and tell me if I'm wrong. It all of a sudden makes it sound like close.
Yes. That proximity, that presence is really where you can hear it. Yeah.
Yes. So here's what I want to do. Now, I know I want to wrap this up pretty soon here, but I think this is really cool. What we're going to do is we're going to listen to, so this is your custom setting. Wow, this is like my videos, but it's like real time. We're doing this in real time.
It is. That's fantastic.
So this is your custom setting. And what I noticed is, if you look at the EQ, we're doing smaller dips. This is not really heavy. I mean, the most is 6 dB in only a mid-frequency space, but I've also raised the whole output 3 dB. So really this lowest one here, what is that, number 5? It's 4.7, but really plus 3, it's only a -1 or almost 2 dip. So my point is, it's taken less EQing when you have a good room to get a good sound, which is great. That means I'm just manipulating, I'm massaging the frequencies to sound good. Now, I need big scoops and big corrections when there's a room problem, but this confirms for me that what we've done, or what you've done in the room, it confirms that you have created a better recording space, giving me a better raw recording, giving us a better sound. So what I want to do, so that was the EQ. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's right. That's exactly, I was agreeing with you. Because the more adjustments, this is another thing that I learned from you, Lenny, is that good sound is going to, the marker of a good sound and a good processing chain isn't how much you can do to it in order to make it better. It's really about just taking it and balancing it to drop out the things that might be a problem in order to really lift and accentuate all of the things that are already there if the recording is good. And for me, that was a reversal in the way that I thought about the process, because I thought, okay, so I got this raw file, let's juice it up, let's turn it up, and let's compress the hell out of it, and then let's do some other stuff, and let's add some bass, because that sounds good, right? Why not? And then do this and that. What else can I do to it to make it better? But the reality is exactly the reverse. It's not about what you can add to it. It's what you can take away, provided the original is good, in order to really bring out that natural quality. So
brilliant, man! You got it. You are right. You're like a master's student. You graduate. You really got it. No, that is the truth. And I'll add one thing, and we're going to listen to your raw file, and then we're going to listen to the process file and talk a little bit about this and kind of wrap it up here. Again, thank you, Theo, for doing this. Please leave comments or questions if you've got them, and we're going to do another live on Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. That's what we're scheduled to do, and I'm going to put out on YouTube. I think you could schedule the live, and then people can click on a reminder, to get it to watch. But please join us again. And if you've got questions, I'm happy to help and answer. But I want to add one thing to what you just said. Once you have a good raw recording, now the plugins actually, you start hearing the difference. I go, oh, I see what the Avalon 737 sound is. But because if you've got a good balanced recording, you're right. All of the compression and EQ and de-essing, it's really just, it's finesse. It's like there's these little tools to optimize, but you don't hear really the sound of those processors, especially when you get into some of the boutique stuff. It's like, oh, the Manley Voxbox has a sound. Well, you really can't hear the difference unless you're using it on a completely raw file that is giving us a really good image, a sharp image, no reflections. Now I can hear really the difference. you can hear it in other ways as well, but I think the clarity, the difference in what those type of processors offer, like the compressor that we use for the Sheps Omni channel, which we'll go through and talk about here. I mean, to really understand what this compressor or what this EQ sounds like, it takes a raw file to do that. All right, I know people are going, all right, play the damn file. I can feel that through the screen here. Did you feel that? I just felt it. Here, so
a little bit.
Your preset is disengaged. So what we're going to do is listen to the raw file. This was the second to the last one. You had me do another alternate for you with some more air. Was just a little thing I like to give you all the tools that you want. But this was the one just before where we kind of removed some of the boom. You were feeling there was a little bit too much bass coming through. And so we just modified that. So here's the raw file. Let's listen to it a few times here.
As it so often happens, people all...
Are you hearing that, by the way, direct? Okay, here we go.
As it so often happens, people all over the world can manifest the same idea under completely different circumstances and with no foreknowledge of one another.
Man, what a voice. It sounds dead. I don't hear any reflections in any frequency spaces. Let's listen one more time.
As it so often happens, people all over the world can manifest the same idea under completely different circumstances.
Now, I'm going to play it again, and halfway through, I'm going to engage the processing, and you're going to hear, I think it's, let me do it, and then we'll talk about it.
As it so often happens, people all over the world can manifest the same idea under completely different circumstances.
I didn't do it all the way this time. Here we go. That was still all the raw file. Here we go.
As it so often happens, people all over the world can manifest the same idea under completely different circumstances and with no foreknowledge of one another.
Off.
I once read that, statistically, an average thought is shared by 10,000 minds across cultures and continents at a given moment. Unique, creative ideas can be shared by hundreds.
On.
And extraordinary, breakthrough inventions by a dozen or so.
I think it's subtle, which is good, because it's subtle because your original raw recording sounds good to begin with. But what do you hear? Do you tell me what you hear? And the comments. Please bring the comments. Let's talk about it. Excuse me.
I think subtle. I mean, to me now, maybe it's because I've listened to these files by comparison. The A to B toggle so many times. It's no longer subtle to me. I think you've trained my ear to really hear it now, that the clarity and presence and just the richness of the sound in the processed version is so much more pronounced than in the raw.
Yeah, it's what you and I are hearing. And this is the first live that we're doing. Thank you, this stupendous Chumley, another client of mine, and David, I appreciate you. I just saw your comments. There's a loop back. So there's like a doubling of the audio that I'm playing. And give me a second here. I'm going to see if I can figure this out. I knew we were going to have, I don't want to say issues, but this is what happens in real life. And bear with me. These are the type of things that I lose sleep over. So because the audio engineer's got to get his audio right. I'm just being transparent here. Let me make sure that let's jump back. Hold on a second here. Okay, so let me think about the reason why this would have been happening. Yes, I think I understand. I'm going to play it again, raw, and then I'm going to play it.
They're saying it's only when...
It's on the stream. No. Yeah, I'm going to play it raw, and then I'm going to play it... and I'm going to engage it so you can hear it, just so we can get a good version. And maybe in the chat you could tell me again if what you're hearing is the right thing. So let me do this. So I'm going to play it now. Stand by. Man, there's a lot of moving parts with this thing. I hope I'm going to look at the chat now and see Only when the DAW is on the screen. DAW playback is good. It's just the live stream audio when you're in this view. All right, David, thank you so much for that, by the way. Let's see here. Stand by. Let me go back to the side-by-side. Okay, so it looks like that one worked. It looks like people were able to hear that one. I got to fix and figure out a way, loop back, and I have to route the digital routing of the audio to make sure this works without that on the stream for the next time.
It's all part of the process.
Yes. Playback is good. It's just the live stream audio when you're in this view. Which view is that, David? Tell me. In the Logic view. I understand. Thank you.
And they're saying it's only me and not you.
Got it. It's the echo. Good. I am going to fix that. Thank you so much. I understand. Thank you, David, and thanks everyone else in the comments for telling us. Give me your feedback again on the just the sound of those two. Do you want me to play it again?
No, I was thinking if I switch off my external speakers, it might help. Maybe if I'm just listening to the audio through the headphones, so that there's no feedback going into my microphone.
I don't think so. Only because I think it may be, but I think it's an issue on my end. No worries.
Okay.
As long as we can communicate here.
Fair enough.
And we'll do a testing for the next one, because the next episode of a live that I'm going to do, I want to take another somebody else's audio, and we're going to do a diagnosis and walk through what I hear, how they can improve, and then talk about some of the training courses that can help this person improve. But go ahead, give me just a rundown of what you feel was different. What did this improved audio with the custom processing preset, what does it do for you? What do you feel? And what's the difference for you as a voiceover artist? What is it?
Sure. Yeah. So the biggest thing that I was after in my pursuit of better sound is the presence, the aspect of hearing the sound being closer to the listener. That quality that you mentioned, where it's almost like you're in their head. That's something that I found that really affects me as a listener. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, to a lot of different narrators. I'm always interested in why is this guy doing so much better than this guy? Is it the sound? Is it the style? Is it something else? And of course, always it's a combination of those things, but in particular, the presence and the clarity is something that takes away that sense of a filter between you and the audio.
Barrier.
And I felt that the raw sound really had a bit of that filter. We can call it, it's probably not the right term to describe it, but I think of it as muddy.
Yes.
It's not that I think that the TLM 103 is muddy. It's just that my particular voice in this space, which is what you always talk about, the situation, right? The exact situation that you're in, your voice, your mic, your space.
Yes.
The day might make it different.
Right.
But I felt like that raw audio was a bit muddy. It was a bit thick. There was just not quite enough clarity in it. If I was sort of turning knobs willy-nilly with my level of understanding about the stuff, I would want to turn up the high frequencies. That's my natural instinct. I want more of that high to kind of balance off the mid and the lows. And so the processed sound really made it seem more clear, more present, and more balanced between the low and the higher, so that overall the sound was more well-rounded, rather than being too heavy on one end or the other.
Yes.
So
balance.
That balance is really important. Balance and presence ended up being what I think did it for me, was hearing that difference and going, okay, this is much more natural to what I think I sound like in my own head.
Yes.
And hopefully the listener feels the same way too. And maybe the chat can give us a bit of feedback and let us know, like, did you hear that also, or was it something else for you?
Yes. Yeah, and then, you got to also think about the streaming that it's going through, and the bit rate is being, adjusted, which happens to everybody. It's also the speakers that they're listening to. It's the room treatment in their room and the speakers that they have, because we talk about recording in a treated room. It's also listening back. You might maybe have noticed this too. When you create a good recording space, you're also creating a good listening space, because now when you hear something back, you are getting a true representation of what's coming out of the speakers. You're not also hearing the reflection. And that's what can cause you to think, maybe I need more high end, because you're hearing the bass artificially too loud. So you would try to modify it. And then this is what happens. People do their changes in the EQ, and then they go play it on a different sound system in a different room, and they go, what the heck happened? That's part of, that's why people go, right. That's why people go to studios that are a well-treated room is everything. Last question, and we're going to wrap this up. Theo, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Anytime.
Has it helped your bottom line? I mean, are you getting? Has anybody made a comment about your sound? Is it really paying off? What's the ROI for you? And I want you to be completely honest with me. If you feel like it's just helped you feel better, that's cool too. I want you to be completely sincere.
No. This is look, for anybody wondering what kind of difference it makes, it's a multi-prong impact. Of course, it helps my confidence to know that I sound better and that I'm getting everything that I can out of my equipment and my situation. But I get comments on the quality of the sound that I have all the time. And I feel like I'm stealing compliments because it's not really my achievement. Lenny, you've been such a huge part of that. But also, I'd be remiss not to give a shout out to all the things that I learned from all the people who have struggled through the stuff and tried stuff and said, get an interface, just do it. Just
there's a lot of good people.
The USB mic.
There's a lot of great people online. I'm with you, man. I totally agree with you. You know what I've done, Theo? I've cleaned your window so people can see you better. That's really, I think, what it is from a sound standpoint. I've made it to where people can really hear you naturally. And I don't want, when I make a custom preset for somebody or help you change the room or help you with the equipment or suggest a mic placement or treatment placement or whatever it is, I'm making it, I don't want people to hear the processing. I want people to hear you. So I try unless you want a punchy sound for a car commercial or something, we could do that too. You could use the tools that way too. But really, I think my general drive is to reveal more of you so you can make that emotional connection. Please leave comments. Thank you, Theo, for all your time for 2 hours today. This was awesome. Are you good with doing it again? You want to do? We'll chat again on Saturday.
I'm happy to. I'll be there.
If there are things that you want us to cover or questions that you have, please leave a comment. All the details on my custom processing and my training courses are at lennyb.com. I create this stuff and do this to help, to share my skill and the thing that I'm passionate about. And I appreciate you, Theo, sharing your journey. I want to hear more about this. And I really do feel like, what I want to do is I want to invite more, get to know this voiceover artist, because I've got people that from all over the world that are following their dreams, and I want to share their challenges and solutions with other people. And I think the more I do this, it's just going to help more and grow the community and grow the channel and just reach out to more and more people and help more people. So
absolutely.
You're the initial foundational pillar of this that I'm building here. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lenny. It's my pleasure.
Now I have to figure out how to shut this off and stop broadcasting. So we're gonna work.
Be a way.
I'm sure there is. I'll figure it out. And thanks for being patient and everything. We're gonna see you on Saturday, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, Chris, David, all the people in the chat, Terry, Florida D, Corey. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out.
Thanks,
and we'll
folks.
catch you
Appreciate it.
on the next one. Here, let's try. I'm gonna try this real quick. Let me see if I can do this. Let's see what David said. I have to do. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can do this. Look at that. I figured out how to do that. David says, this was great, guys.
Perfect.
Like seeing all of Lenny's video in real world scenarios. Awesome, David. Thank you so much for doing that and commenting and stuff. All right. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Theo.
See you.